Is it possible to make a limited Warmachine that's actually manageable to be played by newer players? Let's talk about that. Hey there guys, it's me Malorian, it's Malorian Weekly coming at you again. It's season one, episode 4, and today I want to be talking about, is limited Warmachine legit? Now, the reason why this topic just jumped into my queue is because I was listening to the Line of Sight podcast. Great one, you should go listen to it. And in this most recent one, Will Hungerford was on there. He's been there now 10 years of Private Press, talking about the way that, the game actually works and the way that development works behind the scenes, where they're kind of wanting to go with some things and where some challenges are coming in. Now, a very, very interesting comparison that they made there, and something that they said that they actually want to push for, was this idea of a limited Warmachine format or type. Now, I think the way that I want to bring this about and talk about this is I want to talk about, first of all, what are the current issues that actually even make this something that you want to have? Secondly, talk about what Will Hungerford suggested, and then after that, I'm going to talk about why I think that's not going to work, and then finally, to tie it all together, of course, throw in my 2 cents of how I think we can actually get this in the game. So let's start off with what's even the problem. Why are we even talking about limited Warmachine? We have all these awesome models, we like to play them, so why don't we just play them? Well, the first problem, though, is the fact that there's a lot of models. This game's been going for a long time. There are so many factions with so many casters and so many models and units, and then in each one of those, so many rules to remember. Sometimes if I ever want to feel like I'm really wasting my life, I'll kind of like multiply out how many models and factions and rules I've memorized in my brain from playing this game, and being like, wow, I could probably have now memorized enough to be like, have my doctorate in like chemical sciences, or be like a rocket scientist or something by now, with all these things I've trapped in my mind, which, like, you might know how to get a rocket to the moon, but do you know the math on a score and whatever? Like, that's the thing that I've put in my mind instead, except for scoring. That goes in the garbage. Anyway, getting back on topic here. There's so much out there, and it's a real problem to new players. A new player comes to this game, Warmachine, and they're like, oh, this is great. Okay, what do I got to do to play this? And you can run them through the base rules. Okay, this is how you activate, this is how you move, this is how you attack, this is how feats work, this is how scoring works. All right, let's do a game. Boom, I pop my feet, you're dead. And this type of a thing is not good for a player experience, because they're like, oh, wow. And I mean, if you're a person that's played chess, you probably know the 3-move checkmate that new players are going to hit you with over and over again until you learn how to beat it, and they're going to keep on going. Now, that's something where it's a pretty easy thing to see after the first time or two. It's very easy to counter, and there's not a lot of things like that. There's a few little alterations, but once you get the idea, okay, that gotcha's out of here. The problem is that Warmachine is full of gotchas with so many things, and that's why new players have to go like 2 years getting their asses kicked before they can actually find some real success. And guess what? A lot of new players, before they get to that point, say, screw this game, I'm out of here, and then all of a sudden we've lost a player, and this just isn't good for us. It's not good for us as a community that wants to be growing, that wants to be fostering new talent, and it just puts more of a negative attitude out there. Because what do you think these people do? They go out and they talk to their friends like, yeah, I tried Warmachine, it's stupid, there's just so many rules, it's broken, everything's overpowered, and I mean, if that's the type of ambassadors that we're then sending out to be spreading the word, that's not helping us. That's not helping us whatsoever. So this is something that we have to fix. We have to address this. There's too many rules. We need to somehow change it or make a format that's more user-friendly for these new players so there's not so many more rules to take in. All right, that's the problem. So what did Will Hungerford say is the answer? Well, he didn't give the full answer, but what he went after was a comparison to Magic the Gathering, and that in Magic the Gathering, there's several different formats, and one of them is really designed on a very limited number of options. Magic the Gathering is a card game, comes out in sets, and if you're playing it in Standard, there is basically you're playing with the last 3 sets, so those cards are the only ones you need to deal with, and so if we think of that, that might be exactly what we need. Looking from Hungerford's point of view, that'd be perfect. If we can say a limited amount of choices, these last ones are the ones you're supposed to be using, and we can bring these things down, that's fantastic. Then, there we go. We'll just go with like a standard / limited Warmachine. Boom, there you go. Kind of fixes everything because we have this smaller pool of things for people to use. Well, again, I mean, I'm sure this is not fully worked out. This is a lot more in depth. I'm sure he has, a notebook somewhere that has a lot more deeper details and clarifications on these different types of ideas. But from this point of view, where let's make something like Standard, well, let's kind of explore that. Because luckily, I'm also a Magic the Gathering player, not like super serious, but I have quite a few cards scattered around here. I play a fair amount, and I at least know enough to know about these formats and the differences and the challenges behind them. So let's talk about Standard. When I got more into it, I was like, yeah, Standard's... No, I didn't start with Standard. I started with their other one that's called Modern. And in Modern, you're using almost everything. So let's assume, to make a good comparison, if Modern and Warmachine was that you could use every model that was released since Mark II came out. They're like, Mark I was a little bit weird, but everything Mark II on, you can use that. Well, the problem is that me and my kids went to this, and I went to this, and we just got our butts kicked, because really what happened, as we walked in there were so many players with better cards from all these different times, and we would just lose automatically all the time without having a chance. Okay, that's too much. We want to try this thing Standard. Oh, Standard sounds great, because now we can go down and we can play something that's more limited, and also it's going to equal the playing field, right? It's first of all a thing where I don't have to learn so much. I just need to understand the last 3 sets, and then past that, when I'm competing with others, it's not like they can have all these choices from all these different sets over the decades. They're basically picking from the same cards that I am. Even playing field. Well, it doesn't really work out that way still. I mean, we have to try and also remember that we're talking about a collectible card game with rarity. Just assume that things like, Archons were rare and you'd have to be lucky to get them or pay lots of money for them. So all of a sudden the people that have put lots of money into the game win more. Okay, that part of the comparison doesn't work well for this Warmachine metaphor. However, there was still a very large discrepancy between me, the new player coming in, and the experienced player that knew how to make their deck, had been playing. I mean, really, for the new player, I'm playing off of 1 set, while those other people coming in are using this 3 sets. So they have more options, but the biggest thing is not even the options, it's the mind. They know the right things to do. They know how to build their deck, just like how you'd be building a list. They know how to actually use their deck, just like how you'd have to know to use a deck or use a list, and I was just getting slaughtered still. So, okay, that's a problem. Here's another problem that's a lot more direct to what we're looking here in Warmachine. The fact is that the more we got the Standard, the more we realized, like, oh, okay, it's time for the next cycle, the next things are coming in. Oh, okay, now we gotta buy this. Okay, so in order for us to play, we gotta buy this next set. Okay, let's go. Man, it sure seems like this is like a money type thing. With this rotating cycle here, you really gotta pay a lot of money for this. Well, it's fine. Play a couple, until all of a sudden the first set that we started with went out of rotation. And then it's like, whoa, what do you mean I can't play with these cards anymore? I have strong feelings towards these cards. Like when I first came in, these were the creatures and the spells that I fell in love with the game. These are the ones I want to use. And now you're telling me I can't use them? And to relate these to Warmachine and how a limited type thing would work, it'd be exactly the same as this rotating system of limited options goes through, first of all, as the new things come into rotation, you're forced to spend that money in order to buy. And even though, our original our intent is to really level the playing field, make sure there's not as much things you have to remember, at the same time, we are also saying that, look, if we're going to keep things new and interesting, you're going to have to keep buying. And whether that's Privateer Press's intent into like selling models, or whether they want to keep things interested for veteran players, I can't tell you. But as a player, you gotta wonder if it's for the money, and I mean that part doesn't look good. And then of course another part, like I said, the feel bad, the when it now goes out, where let's say for example, like okay, I went into this limited series, I got this caster, I got this unit. Okay, what's this next? Oh, they're out of rotation. So now what? Now I spent this money on these things, and what? They're just going to sit on the shelves and I can't use them? Well, great. I'm glad I spent all that time preparing these things, and now they're going to do nothing. And to be fair, that was one of Will Hungerford's counter-arguments, is just the idea that there is a difference here between a card I can quickly buy and then a model that I've invested lots more time into. I mean, like, I can say that I've invested feelings in the cards that I played for my first set. However, from the models that I spent hours painting, clearly there's a lot more there. And so that's nothing that they want to be getting into. They don't want to be causing any real issues there. That's a real problem, that how do you make this work? And that's the thing. When I say like, oh, this is a simple thing, that's his solution, the thing to keep in mind as well is that he also said like, well, it doesn't actually work all that great, and we're going to have to try and develop something, because clearly something is needed, but what we're looking at here as a simple solution also won't work. So, where are we? We know we have a problem. We know that one thing we could do is compare to other companies and maybe go for like a limited rotation. But at the same time, we've also just described why that won't work. So, what can we do? What is the possibility to be making this work? Well, if you ask me, we already have a couple of things that could kind of already make this work in a way. For one, if we took something like our Champions format and said, you know what? That's going to be the format, lock. Now, here's the reason why you'd want to lock that Champions format. The Champions format as it exists right now is basically kind of doing what you want. You only have to remember a small handful of casters from every different faction. There's only so many models you need to worry about from every single faction. And then there's only so many themes you have to worry about. So this is fantastic. Little things you have to deal with. However, in the current way right now, you have to keep on rotating these casters. And if you keep on rotating, well, all of a sudden you have to keep on paying that money. So you're getting the bad feelings as things are rolling out. Clearly, this can't be something that's going to be working all that great. Okay, if that's not going to work, and we did lock it down, does that work? Well, we even have some problems there. And the problem is, if I was to lock a single Champions forever, the game doesn't stay balanced. The Privateer Press works very hard to lock their, or to balance rather, their champion lists so that everything's equal. As time goes on and there's more releases, well, guess what? All of a sudden now, since this theme has these options, and you can now take this jack here, and you can now do whatever, well, guess what? This one now goes up in power. The hard work they did on balancing is all gone, and now, guess what? That's out of here. Okay, well, what other options do we have to maybe keep things a little bit more fair? Well, what about battle box tournaments? If we were to keep battle boxes the same so that literally nothing changes, there'll be always the same caster, there'll be always the same jacks there, that could be the tournament, and it's extremely limited, and then hooray, there it is, we just found the solution. Well, unfortunately, we have a problem there as well, in that it is going to be so boring. There's only so many of these starter sets. Nobody really wants to play these teeny tiny little games anymore, and so I don't think that's really going to be the way to go. So, it seems like every single time, whether Will Hungerford suggesting something or I'm suggesting something, it's getting shot down. And I think a big thing to keep in mind is that there probably is not a really good solution here. For us to try and find some way to make this limited format for new players, well, we got to look at the game that we're trying to do that with. And we're trying to do it with this game that has not only so many things to draw from, it is absolutely massive, but it's also in a spot where it's always changing. We're always doing CIDs, new releases are coming out, there's dynamic updates for changes, and so because of that, not only is like this big huge library daunting, but even if you draw it down to a limited selection, that selection is adjusting constantly as well, such that if you've got a perfect square to begin with, it's going to quickly change and not be balanced in, let's say 3 years. So that's a problem. And as well, if we're going to go and say we're going to rebalance it every year, like we said, then we're doing that rotation, negatives. Man, what are we going to do? Well, one of the things that I thought of that'd be a really good thing to do for those new players is that maybe we should learn from Magic. As people play through Magic and they play their standard and they play their modern and they do drafts and they do all the different formats there is one format that is doing extremely well with these Magic the Gathering players, and it's the biggest format right now that just keeps on going up and up and up in popularity. And what that format is Commander. Now, what Commander is as a format, to try and teach those who don't know the game, is basically they said, okay, you know all these cards you have? They're all legal. There's a small ban list, but otherwise, out of the thousands and thousands of cards there are, if you own them in your collection, we're not going to limit you. You can use 99.99999% of them. Go ahead and make your deck. Awesome. So all the people that are worried about their things being like, oh, you're always forcing me to buy new things to be competitive, you're always forcing me to not use these cards, that's off the table. Here's the other part, though. Commander is a multiplayer game. It's not just two, it's more than two. And what that really means then is you're bringing in a whole new dynamic. You're bringing in something where, well, look at this. I might not be able to beat you, but if I can do a little politicking at the table, maybe the two of us can beat that person. And that changes the game dramatically. Not only now do you have an interesting game because it has all these different options and so many things you can do, but it almost self-balances itself, because if somebody comes to the table with something that's crazy, they're going to get teamed up on. And if you're the new player, you're not going to go and just be stomped into the dirt. The other players are going to try and use you to work with them to defeat their rivals. And so not only are you in a spot as a new player where you can go in there and you can play and you can keep up, but also at the same time, you're learning. You're there watching like, oh, look at that. Yeah, that's a great move. Ooh, look at that combination. Oh, that's really good. So it's a very good thing where not only is it a game where you can go in and find success, but it's also teaching you at the same time. Well, that's great. That's Magic the Gathering. What can we do with Warmachine? Exactly the same goddamn thing. One of the games that I used to love playing in Fort McMurray when I lived up there were our multiplayer games. You would have several people there, only one table available. Guess what? We're going to do a multiplayer game. Sometimes that's going to be 2 versus 2, and that was okay, but the games I remember the most are the ones where, hey, look, we're going to set up this 4x4. Each of us are going to be taking a 35-point list type thing. You get to deploy your models within 1 foot of one of those corners, so each person has their own corner. We'll throw down a circle in the middle of the board to try and control, and let's do this. And now all of a sudden, that's just like Commander and Warmachine, because you're now trying to assess all your opponents at the same time. Who's a threat? Where do I want to be making deals? Oh, look at that cool thing. Yeah, that spell, and that's awesome. Oh, that's right. That really does counter that model over there. And It is amazing. But the only thing more amazing than that was how astonishing that it's nowhere else. When I moved to Edmonton, I was like, all right, bigger meta, let's do this. Oh, nobody does this ever. Oh, okay, well, I'm sure I can find. No, it's not online, it's nowhere else. Oh, and I think that this is a real gap, and this is a real place that privateer press and press gangers can be looking to be pulling in these players and finding a way to make this work. However, it is only going to work if we get in the buy-in of the community. And the only way that we can get the buy-in of the community is we need to teach them that there's a problem. We need them to understand why this is being made. This is not a fluffy thing being thrown out there because you tournament players are all too serious and we need something more fun. No, this is a format. This is a version of the game that is specifically designed to be a welcoming environment for new players where they can come in with their small handful of models and they can have fun and they can find success and they can learn. That is what this is for. And once you buy people in and they understand, like, oh, that's why we're doing this. Yeah, sure, I'll jump in there. Hey, new guy, let's go get this person. And it's going to start building. And the more they do that, the more they play, the more that they enjoy it. So there's my thoughts. My only sadness to this is that I know that the possibility of success for this is extremely low. Like I said, it seems that the Warmachine community does not have this in their mindset whatsoever. I mean, there's certainly people that will play themed games and do this and that, but that's in the minority. Maybe this Oblivion campaign is going to maybe start changing that as people are playing some campaigns. But even a step further than that, the idea that you're going to be breaking this board apart and having multiple players and having these, like, we each get a corner, off we go, that's just so wild and different. The closest you get is sometimes you see these pictures at cons where people are like, hey, we got 8 people, let's do a 4-on-4 mega battle. And then it's a blast, everybody has lots of fun. But even then, you're not getting that full commander, that full politics feel of being able to actually use various people against others and broker deals and do stuff like that actually allows those newer players to just, as I keep on saying, having fun, having success, and learning the game. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the limited issue with Warmachine, why it's an issue that we need to address somehow, why the versions that we're currently looking at probably won't work and just cause more frustration, and why I think we should end up taking a page of learning from Magic the Gathering and start running more commander type games with these multiplayers. So there you have it. Let me know what you think. Please post down below. I really want to have conversations about these, and if you do like it, give it a try. Anyway, thanks for listening. Catch you later.